what it is, what it was, and what it shall be. Well, you understand, we're coming to you with video 46. Today's video is all about 6, right? So the 6 is a further continuation of this system I was describing earlier. I would like to take this opportunity too to thanks to my friends who are geometers. I love geometry, man. I'm telling you, if you really want to be a wizard, the most two basic things you need to know is alphabets and numbers. And when you get into geometry and spherical geometry, especially three-dimensional geometry and above, then you're seeing number as form. And so this is so essential to what I'm describing. And in fact, you could think of this quintessence as a transition between dimensionalities. But it's more, okay, so I don't know how deep my average listeners are into geometry, right? But there's what I guess you could call extra dimensional geometry, so 4D and above. And there's where we get into these things where the Tesseract, for example, they have these different names like a 24 cell. And basically, if you take a three-dimensional object and turn it in on itself, just constantly, like an infinite loop, it's hard to explain, but you can get lots of videos about it. But suffice it to say, this is a topic that's highly germane to what I'm trying to explain to people, is that although we're basically programmed to be dumb and to be down at least one dimension from what we're actually capable of, and sometimes more. And the whole point of all this wizarding shit is because humans are microcosms of all creation. So if humans are sick and they're programmed with self-destructive, suicide program of all these different, like hedonism, okay? I really want to talk about hedonism, because I think hedonism is like the default position for consumers making up most of the world's, money slaves that basically, they may not think of themselves as slaves, but my point is that they're completely dependent. They're in a state of total dependency. And that's only possible through brainwashing, through crippling the inner faculties that render all humans free by nature. And I mean, so as I was talking about geometry before, like these are considered, they're called the liberal arts. So if you think about liberal, there's different meanings to that. Like number one, it could mean relating to books, like a library, but it could also mean things that make you free, things that free you. Free your mind, your ass will follow, right? I have a few favorite one-liners that summarize my entire philosophy. That's one of them. Another one is from Buckminster Fuller. I made a brief allusion to this, but I didn't spell it all out. He has this saying, unity is plural and at minimum is two. And even though that's baffling, I always liked it, even though I didn't understand it for the longest time. But after I heard enough of his lectures, he comes back and back to this over and over again. But it has to do with how I was talking about Yahweh and the dual unity. And that's how reality is, okay? So what I'm talking about here is going beyond duality. So some people have, since the 50s, all these different scriptures have been coming out, like the Nag Hammadi library and these different manuscripts. And I don't either confirm nor deny none of that, but I like to think about it. And so there's a couple that I really like to think about. And one of those, which I believe is from the apocryphal Gospel of Thomas, maybe. And this one says, when there's no difference between within and without, then that's the kingdom of heaven. So, as a good friend pointed out, bringing in the dodecahedron, which is a Platonic regular solid that has been selected to symbolize the ether element or the space element. And so, I'm a big fan of Dali. I think Dali, although nuts and a bizarre sex pervert and a drug addict and stuff, I mean, he is a wizard, and he for sure. Oh my God, dude, that guy. I mean, unbelievable architect, painter, sculptor. I could just go. That guy invented all kinds of stuff. You know, he broke crazy ground, but he was mentally ill, and he was a drug abuser, and he had bizarre sex things since youth. It's sad, but my point is, he has this painting called The Last Supper, and it shows Christ within this dodecahedron. And then in the distance, in the back, in the like rear ground of the painting, there's like a ship just like drifting, right? And it's empty, no one's in it, right? So deep, dude. So deep. I wish people could understand what this is really showing you. It's profound. But well, I'll just take something simple right there. So a dodecahedron has 12 faces. So this is why all our sky shit is divided in 12s. One of the reasons. It's divided in 12s and 60s, but in a way, you know, there's a relation. Pentagonal relation. See what I mean? But I'm skipping that. I'm trying to give you something that's on point, because these have all been numerical so far. This is number 6. So 6 is also called a hexahedron in Greek, and which we call a cube. So Kabbalah is entirely based on a cube. In fact, I'm pretty sure Kabbalah, Kybal, Cable, all come from the same word for a cube. And the Kybalion, if you ever heard that, it's related. But the Kubrick, Stanley Kubrick, right? Oh man, I wish I could explain all this to people. Venus, let's just say Venus comes into play, and that pentagonal symmetry, okay? So there's the imagination and there's the 5 senses, okay? There's the 5 elemental phases of matter and energy, and then there's voidness. So the cube is very prominent in both the Tree of Life, in Freemasonic, and I mean, I don't really want to talk about that cube too much. It's fucking scary. The black cube and the white cube. The black cube is kind of like a sacrificial altar that's just constantly flowing with blood, believe it or not. It's like a black hole almost. It just consumes energy. I could get into the whole temporal aspect, but I don't think people are ready for time control shit yet. But have you ever heard of this guy, John Titor? It's a great internet, you know, urban myth about this guy that was claimed to be a time traveler, and he was on the nets. He was on the intro nets, and he was telling the technology of how his time travel thing works. And he said it's 2 strangelets, which is like a micro scale singularity. Black and white. Black hole and a white hole. I'm not gonna get, okay, how the Masons have, you can get blackballed. If you get in, you're white. But if you get out, you're blackballed. That's how they say it. That's Kabbalah. That is exactly Kabbalah right there. Black cube, white cube. So the cube is a hexahedron, which means it has 6 faces. So if you take 2 cubes and stack them one on top of another, there's 2 hidden faces and there's 10 exterior faces. So those 2 hidden faces is basically what's called da'at in the Kabbalah. In a way, it's also the unity between the 2 hemispheres of the brain. I could go a lot about that. I mean, right now I'm just gonna try to simple it down, because I always want to put way too much and spread it all too thin. But this part, okay, da'at is called the abyss. Okay, so there's this thing called the Yetziratic ceiling right. So that's where you picture the 6 directions, the 6 extremes of 3-dimensional space. Up, down, left, right, front, and back. Right? That's a cube. If all those vectors are equal, it's basically a cube. Right? So there's the earthly cube and the heavenly cube. Right? The New Jerusalem in the book of Revelation is described as a white cube in the sky, basically. I don't understand why people don't know that, or why it's rarely depicted. But Dali's good friend, he knew, and he painted it that way. Ernst, good old Ernst, that guy, fuck. Anyway, he knew everything I'm saying and so much more, and he painted a lot of it into his paintings. So the black cube and the white cube is so in alchemy, the black cube is basically the prima materia. It's the undifferentiated Heil, or this like primordial matter that your job is to refine and purify into the white stone. So if you read the book of Revelations, in there the white stone comes up again. So if your name is in the book of life and so on, you get the white stone, and you get the secret name that's known only to you. And it says, well, basically that white stone is a microcosm of the heavenly Jerusalem, and it exists at the union between the hemispheres. And so the black stone is the pelvis, right? The black stone is the sexual, regenerative, plutonic and scorpionic like energy at the base of the spine. Now, the job is you got to get it to here, okay? Now that's heaven. That's the New Jerusalem. That's Eden, right? The fruit, da'at, is the fruit, the knowledge of good and evil. So okay, we're going to do some serious, actual, real Kabbalah right now. Da'at. It means it's sometimes glossed as abyss, which is like a great depth of something, like a cavern or a valley or a, you know, sinkhole, something that's really deep and really big, right? But also it's like unfathomable. You can't hit the bottom, right? That's an abyss. So da'at is an abyss, right? Between the two cubes, above and below. And so let's break down this word. As I said, every Hebrew letter is a number and a word. So da'at, I think, is 474. I think that's right. So dalet is a doorway. Ayin. It actually represents two eyes. Graphically, if you look at the letter, there's two eyes. It has a literal meaning of eye. And so that's the third eye, okay? But the thing is the split. You got to remember how it's got one bottom piece and then it splits into two. That's super critical, okay? Horus and Set. But anyway, the black cube and the white cube again. There's two little eyes. It's hard to explain at first, but okay, so finally we have Tav, which is cross. It means cross, like cross. So where the eyes cross, there's a doorway. Are you starting to understand now? So this is, I mean, the midbrain, the pineal gland, corpus callosum, the brain fog. Okay, this is the Ark of the Covenant, and this is the cherubim, is the cerebrum of the brain and the two lobes. And so the Ark, A-R-C and A-R-K. A-R-K is that empty boat from Dali's painting that I was telling you about. A-R-C is an electrostatic discharge. So if you have too much discharge between the hemispheres of your brain, it's like an epileptic seizure. Which maybe that's what's happening to the high priest if he goes into the Arcanum Arcanorum, the Sanctum Sanctorum. If he goes in there, he gets blasted with too much juice, they got to yank him out. But hopefully that the cable tow is insulating him. It's like a ground, you know. But anyway, this is Eden. It's that gate between the black cube and the white cube. And so I was talking about the number 6 and how the 6 represents the faces of a cube. Okay, what I was going to say is how there's two cubes, black cube and white cube, and there's two intermediate faces that are concealed. And so that leaves 10, which is the 10 Sephirah of the tree of life, for one, amongst other things. But those two hidden faces become one face because they're connected. But in another sense, it's an abyss because it's a void between solids. So people have no idea what I just dropped on you, dude. You have no idea. Use it wisely, young Jedi. Here's why. I want to make a whole video of this unto itself, but it fits really well right here. The why. What the fuck is a wizarding school for? It's because the forces of darkness are never sleeping. They're constantly trying to turn our world into their fucking slavery playground. And we have to stop them. If it's going to be stopped, it's us that stops it. And what I'm saying in the macrocosm, microcosm, it's like we are the world, you are the world, you're the universe. What comes in here, what comes out of here, is what builds the world. Are you doing it carelessly? Are you dreaming someone else's dreams and selling products? Or are you being the divine within in that gap? Think about it.